We're talking about the zero, or shunya in Sanskrit and even in modern day Hindi, and shunya would have derived from a philosophical Indian concept shunyata, which was especially extrapolated within the Buddhist philosophy, and which basically departs from the idea that nothing exists totally independently. Everything is codependent, so if you want to find the kernel of one manifestation, there is simply nothing. Vincent, emptiness is not nothing, because everything would derive from emptiness and return to emptiness. So emptiness in Indian philosophy is a very pregnant concept, we might say, pregnant with possibilities. And likewise, the zero or shunya is not nothing either. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the importance of the zero, also for the Western mathematical system.
Zero is important in mathematics, and it is useful in the other sciences. Now, the importance of mathematics is that it completes, to a certain extent, a series of numbers. Imagine you start with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and if you remove the 1, is there something that is one count less than 1? And once you've thought about it, it exists. In that sense, mathematics is like poetry. Once you've invented something, it's there. Whether it's useful, whether it's important, if it fits with the rest is another story. Now, it just so happens that zero is exceedingly important in mathematics. It completes, to a certain extent, a number series. Without that, it is not, your numbers are incomplete, so to speak. So it is curious that something that is zero, that is less than zero, is non-existent, as it were, that completes something. And that is why in arithmetic, zero is so very useful. And that is where the sciences come in the exact sciences like theoretical physics, like in astrophysics. We use numbers in order to represent the world outside. And that representation is very difficult if you do not have a zero. Because when you construct something, for instance, a model of the universe, a model of a star, a model of an atom, it is important to be able to say, here I have something, and there I have nothing. All right. Now, in astrophysics, the nothing is sometimes misunderstood, right? Space and time are not emptiness and not nothing. Space and time are building material out of which our universe is constructed. And in that sense, the emptiness of space is similar to the zero in mathematics.
Could you tell us a little bit about the importance of the zero? It is of course speculative, but could you elucidate a little bit on what you think the world might have looked like if we hadn't had the zero?
Without the invention of zero, it is perfectly possible to have arithmetic. It is difficult, but it is possible. For instance, the Romans, with their curious Roman numeral system and stuff, they could calculate. In fact, the word calculus means a little pebble, right, which they used in order to keep track of where they were in their calculation. Now, it's perfectly possible to do that, but it's hard. And there was Fibonacci, and then later on Simons de Win in the Netherlands, who saw the utility of this mathematical concept of zero. And utility both in a social sense, I mean, you can sort of count whatever it is that you earn in the market, okay, and utility in a scientific sense. You should compare computations, calculations from before the year, shall we say, 1580 and after 1600. There's just a world of difference, right? And you immediately see from that image how fantastically useful zero is in arithmetic and in calculation.
In your own field of expertise, what is the general consensus about the background of the zero? Actually, we all seem to suppose that zero has come to Europe via Simons de Win, Fibonacci, the Arab route, and then further east and possibly India. But what do you feel in your field? Does the zero indeed hail from India?
Most of the scientists I know have, shall we say, an everyday interest in the history of science. And most of us just simply repeat what we read in the literature. We do not do the research ourselves. I think it is commonly understood among my colleagues and also myself that the concept and the use of zero was brought to Europe by the Arabic culture and that before that it probably originated further east, but the precise details most of us do not know. If it had not been invented in one particular part of the planet, it would definitely have been invented elsewhere. We've seen this very frequently in mathematics, right? For instance, the law that describes how light refracts through the surface of glass was originally invented by Ibn al-Haytham, and then later by Snellius, but they're exactly the same, although these two people work in very, very different cultures. And I think that's about the zero, that is something similar. It just so happened that the 1-0 concept that we use comes from the East, as far as we can tell, but it might have originated elsewhere.
If the zero were indeed to have come from India, she would be born from a different philosophical system. Do you think that makes a difference if we retrace in our research 0 steps back to India and we find perhaps the point where a philosophical concept transferred and altered into a mathematical concept? If we were to find that bridge and we could understand more about the philosophical concept, would that perhaps even change our idea about the zero? Or perhaps we could say, does the zero have more secrets for us?
It is in a sense surprising that there are not multiple origins of zero. It's perfectly thinkable that the zero idea and the usefulness of zero would have existed in one culture and more or less simultaneously somewhere else on the planet without these two having communicated. We do not know this. What I do think, however, is that it is truly universal, and therefore, in a sense, it does not carry any cultural traces. It is not something that is only valid or useful for one particular culture or one particular kind of people, but it's useful for us all.